Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Uche, and on this channel we discuss Bitcoin in a way that is short, simple, fun, and easy to digest, so anyone can understand it. Hopefully. And all this while I do my makeup. Because what else am I gonna do? Just sit here and talk to y'all? Boring! And if you are a returning viewer, you came back to see me. That's so dope. Thank you so much for coming back, and I hope you come back again and again and again. So today we are going to be talking about money. In order to understand Bitcoin, you have to understand money. What is money? Where did this concept come from? And what are the things that have been considered money throughout history? Let's get into it. So back in the day, like the beginning of time, money didn't exist. People used to use a barter system where basically they traded one good for another with each other. So let's say, for example, I am an apple farmer and you sell beef. If I wanted beef from you, I would trade my apples for your beef. This is how society operated. They would just trade whatever they produced with each other. But obviously, there were issues with the barter system. For example, there is something called the double coincidence of wants, where basically I have what you want and you have what I want. And in situations like that, a trade can occur. But what if I'm wanting to trade my apples for your beef, but you don't want any apples that day? If you don't want what I have, then no trade happens. So that was one issue with the barter system. And another issue with the barter system was that it's hard to save up for things in certain situations. Let's say as an apple farmer, I wanted to buy a house. A house is very expensive. It would take a lot of apples to be able to buy one house. And by the time I save up enough apples to buy a house, a lot of those apples would have been rotten because it takes so much time, and I'm selling an item that is perishable. So that was an issue also. And also it's just an inefficient system because first of all, you're constantly trying to produce goods that people want, and then you're also trying to find people that have every single good that you want. So if I want a phone, I will go to one person. If I want some water, I will go to another person. Like, I would have to know who is selling every single good and who wants my good. So not only am I trying to find someone who has the car that I want to buy or the drink that I want to buy or whatever, but those people also have to want apples. That's almost impossible. Because of these issues with the barter system, the concept of money was created. So what is money? Money is an economic unit that functions as a generally recognized way of transferring value across space and time. Money has three functions. The first function of money is to act as a store of value. So that means, like with our apple farmer example, if I'm an apple farmer and I'm trying to buy a house in the future, I trust that I can save the money that I make and it'll still hold its value tomorrow, next month, next year, however long it takes for me to sell enough apples, receive money from my customers, and save up that money in order to pay for my house when I have enough money to buy it. For me, this is the primary function of money, because if people didn't believe that what they were using as money would hold its value tomorrow or next month or whenever, they wouldn't want to use money as a medium of exchange. The next function of money, which means that people should be able to use it in order to facilitate transactions. So as an apple farmer, I'm able to sell my apple to someone and receive what we as a community have agreed is money, and I'm able to put all that money together and use it to give to the person who's going to sell me my house. This eliminates the double coincidence of wants problem. This function of money essentially eliminated the barter system. Third function of money is that money has to serve as a unit of account. This means that all goods and services are valued in relation to what the community has agreed is money. For example, in the US, we have the dollar. This makeup brush is $5. A cup of Starbucks is $2. This is $5. That is $10. Everything is valued in relation to the dollar. So this is what it means for money to serve as a unit of account. Everything is priced in terms of dollar. In Nigeria, everything is priced in terms of the naira. Everyone has their own form of money, and they value different goods and services in relation to that money. So throughout history, many different things have been used as money. Cows and livestock were the oldest form of money, and they were used as money between the years 9000 to 6000 BC. But other items have been used as money throughout different civilizations, different countries. Other examples of historical forms of money are things like cowrie shells, which were used in Africa, wampum, which were like strings of beads made from clam shells. Those were used in certain Native American tribes. Ice stones were historically used used as money, but there were issues with all these different forms of money. First of all, a lot of times they were inconvenient. Imagine if your community had cows and livestock as the form of money. So every time you wanted to buy something, you would lug this big animal to whoever it is you're planning on purchasing whatever you want from. Another issue with these early forms of money is that not every community values every other community's form of money. For example, maybe my community uses cowrie shells as their form of money, and I want to trade with someone in a nearby community, but their community uses rice stones as money. So that's what that person has. I wouldn't want to sell to that person because my community doesn't value rice stones. I want cowrie shells. I want cowrie shells.
That's on period.
Like, show me the cowrie shells, okay? Then we can have a trade. This essentially made international trade very difficult. Another issue with these early forms of money was that they were heavily prone to inflation. For example, there were these things called agri-beads that were used as money in West Africa. Agri-beads were made of glass, and glass making back then was rare in Africa. The technology wasn't developed yet. Because these agri-beads were precious and rare, it was used as currency in West Africa. Now, in Europe, glassmaking technology was already developed. So the Europeans, when they saw that these Africans were using these glass beads as money, they were like, we've got that. It can be manufactured cheaply and it's pretty worthless in Europe. So they were able to import loads of these agri-beads and buy up Africa's resources, things like gold, ivory, palm oil, and most importantly, slaves, for dirt cheap, basically nothing. So with the increase in supply of agri-beads in Africa, the beads in the hands of the Africans was now worthless because of inflation. And now all their wealth was transferred to these Europeans that could produce the beads easily. You know, it's actually so frustrating to think about. I just wish I could go back in time and just shake my ancestors and tell them, no, don't sell gold, which is worth so much, for agri-beads that's worth nothing. I know there are a lot of factors that contributed to Africa being in the state that it's in now, but I think that I can make the argument that if those beads had a capped supply that made them harder to produce, thus holding their value, no way the Europeans could have easily exploited Africa the way that they did. They might have, you know, everything that happened with slavery back in the day, all of that might have still happened, but at the very least, it wouldn't have been so easy. Like, we basically just handed Africa to them. Like, here, take it. Just take it all. It took them nothing to mess up Africa the way they did. Can you imagine an Africa without colonizers?
This never gets old.
A girl can dream, right?
Wakanda forever.
So because of these drawbacks of all these early forms of money, such as the inconvenience of it and the fact that international trade was now made difficult and the propensity for these forms of early money to be easily inflated, countries began to adopt the gold standard. Everyone basically moved to a system where gold became the global money. So it started with people using gold coins as money. These gold coins were valuable because they had the denomination, but then also because the gold itself was valuable, these gold coins could be broken down to create other things. From there, they moved to a system where banks would essentially create these certificates that they could issue to people that were backed by gold and could essentially be redeemed for gold. Then eventually, they moved to a system where the government took the gold and they created bills that were backed by gold to the banks. This money that was backed by the gold could be redeemed for gold at any time, but as we know from my first video, that didn't last very long. But anyway, watch my first video to find out what happened to this gold standard. So the UK was the first country to adopt this gold standard. And as more gold was discovered in North America, more countries soon followed suit. Ooh, is this too much? Is this too much contour? Lord. Ooh, okay, Sephora. A bit much with this bronzer. But anyway, watch my first video if you want to remember what the gold standard was and how it operated. But basically, all of these countries moved towards the gold standard, and that made international trade much easier and fixed a lot of the issues that they were having with everyone just having different forms of money that was valued at X in one country but was valued at Y in another country. With everyone using gold, I could trade with someone in another country and trust that their money is backed by that same gold standard. It was just a lot easier for countries to now engage in international trade. So the gold standard was actually great while it lasted. It made international trade a lot easier. It limited government spending, and it also shortened wars. So back in the day, wars were pretty much won by who had enough resources to keep the war going. So if you ran out of money, that's it. End of the war. So because the money that these countries were using were always backed by gold, they can just print more money to fund these wars. So wars actually lasted a shorter amount of time. But gold had its limitations as well, of course. So some of the issues with gold included the fact that it wasn't portable. So it wasn't easy to transfer the gold to different parties. And then also, it's not easily divisible. In order to get like a fraction of gold, you had to essentially melt the golds and do all of these things. It was just difficult to divide gold. Finally, being on the gold standard limited the growth of the economy, because if the government had a project or something that they had to do, they couldn't just print the money to fund their various projects. They actually had to mine more gold in order to pay for anything. So that limited the growth of the economy. It limited how much the government could do. Another drawback of gold was the fact that it could make the economy unstable as well. So when more gold was mined, that could result in inflation. And when less gold was mined, or when gold was more scarce, deflation was an issue. So as we already know, the gold standard worked for some time, but because of these limitations, governments began to suspend the gold standard one by one until no one was on the gold standard anymore. How about we stop here? And in the next video, we will discuss how Bitcoin solves some of the issues that gold had and why I believe Bitcoin is an even better form of money than gold. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun. So come on back next week for another video and we'll talk Bitcoin some more. If you're getting some kind of value from these videos, let me know. I would love to hear it. If you have any feedback, I would love to hear it. If you just love this cute beat, honey, shoot, let me know that too. If you don't even say anything. Just go ahead and go home, because I don't want to hear it. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching again, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.